Welcome to Beyond the Fine Print, the podcast where we help you simplify the ever-evolving world of commercial laws and technology and answer the major questions facing lawyers today. I'm your host, Rory O'Keefe, and in each episode, we'll be breaking through the jargon so you can stay ahead, keep it cool, and take control back. Now let's get started. So welcome to Beyond the Fine Print. Today's guest is what happens when you mix legal brilliance, entrepreneurial grit, and just a dash of, I'm going to shake things up. In this episode, you'll learn about Patricia Gannon, how she built the largest law firm in the Balkans, launched a global legal tech platform, and redefined leadership in the legal world. And this conversation is packed with insights on scaling businesses, embracing change. There are a few insights for in-house lawyers from a private practice viewpoint. So, Patricia didn't just switch gears, she downshifted into overdrive and never looked back. She's the kind of person who probably has a to-do list for her to-do lists. So that's what I think Patricia is. So let's get into it. Patricia, hello, welcome to Beyond the Fine Print.
Hi, I love it. I'm so thrilled to be here. And I love the way you sort of introduced me. It's already intimidating, but I'm hoping to shake up some of those myths right now.
Very good. Well, let's start with your career rather than what you were like as a child. We won't go that far back. So, so you've had a career which reads like a legal thriller. So you were the Irish solicitor, European lawyer, founding, I'm going to say this wrong, is Karanovic Partners.
Karanovic.
And then you what drove you actually to build something from scratch? And more importantly, I never really asked, why the Balkans?
Well, therein lies some of the mystery. I graduated in law from Trinity in Dublin. Even in those early days, I was pretty sure I wasn't going to be living in Ireland. I think the weather alone was enough to sort of drown me out of it. But I really wanted an international career. So I was president of the European Law Students Association, even then as a young lawyer. I spent part of my apprenticeship in a commercial law firm, but also one of the first Irish sort of, young lawyers to be sent and seconded to a German multidisciplinary practice in Munich, of all places. So that gave me a flavour of how lawyers in different parts of the world do the work differently. And particularly, I was impressed by the multidisciplinary approach, which of course we didn't have in Ireland, but it was, where you had tax advisors and consultants and everybody working together around a client. So from those very early days, I was really focused on a client-centric approach, and I didn't see that much in Ireland. So that took me to Germany. Then I got to say it, I accidentally fell in love with a Serb who was a lawyer, and together we actually built out with other partners, we built out what became the largest law firm. So just on time, I arrived to Belgrade just on time for war, bombing, sanctions. But I was young and, what can I say, So it was one of those very exciting times where, your parents look at you, as you'll well know, and say, you're going where? You're doing what? It was one of those moments. But you know what? I turned what could have been a very, very negative situation, and it wasn't easy living through it, but just turned it into something that was one day going to become positive, because we knew that once those countries emerged from former Yugoslavia, there were, 6 new republics, and absolutely everything had to be done. And there were no law firms, to do it. So it was really wrong time, wrong place became right time, right place.
It's amazing because it is the largest regional firm in the Balkans. And that's not just scaling, your empire building effectively. So what were some of the cultural or legal curveballs that you had to navigate?
That's so interesting because when, you talk empire, I mean, you just took me straight back to those very early days of, I won't say flying by the seat of your pants, but you certainly knew that there was nobody else in the sort of environment who really had the kind of skills to do this. We were doing a lot of USAID and World Bank work in privatization. So that required big teams of lawyers and just building it. So we just really hit the ground running. Opportunity was in front of us and hit the ground running. You talk about the cultural challenges. I guess the biggest cultural challenge I always faced was the fact that I was accidentally a girl. I happened to be sort of the only, woman at the table. And quite often, a little bit of the old mansplaining went on every now and again. But, once you were aware that that was part of the game and the story, and to be honest, we were all growing together. So I think it was quite a useful experience.
Yeah, I do have a friend of mine in the Netherlands, and she used to say the same thing. She would walk into rooms. She's the lead lawyer in the room, but all the men would talk to her, junior paralegal, because that's the guy. And I think she got to a point where she just allowed him to talk until the guys on the other side realized they're talking to the wrong person. And they came back to her. So she was quietly educating them as she went through her career. But it's interesting. So I don't know why, but I came with Emily in Paris. Now I've got Patricia in Belgrade as a romance
Not
story.
Not exactly the same thing.
But it is like, building a law firm anywhere or even a law department is like trying to teach a cat to fetch. It's ambitious, it's unpredictable, and you're not even sure you'll end up with a loyal companion or just a lot of scratches. But when you co-founded something of this nature, you had to learn from a junior lawyer to being the senior lawyer at a young age, navigating the environment for women in law at that point. Let's to say it probably still exists in certain geographies, hopefully not in our own. But you had to do all of those things, then creating it one of the biggest, if the biggest, in the Balkans. That's a lot to take on, and also a lot to let go. So I always feel like when people make transitions in their careers and they say, okay, so I've done, I won't say how many years, but it's enough for anybody to say amazing, but you did it for a very long time, which is unheard of for a lot of people's career paths today, to stay with one place for a long time. And then you say, okay, I'm going to set up my own business. I'm going to continue on. I'm going to travel around the world. I'm going to go on talks. I'm going to do all these amazing things. And there's more to come, by the way, everybody. So we'll get to it. But it is astonishing, that you would make that change. So it's always a kind of some people who are going through transitions in their careers. Like, what did that feel like? What was that thinking process for you?
Well, I guess all of it was sort of, the personal and the professional was very heavily intertwined. So, I mean, there was a massive, I think once I had realized, okay, I'd achieved the maximum, we've done extremely well. And then you can perfectly, as many lawyers do, you can sort of, I won't say fluff out your career to the rest of to retirement, but you don't have the same motivation. I've always been a builder. So with us, for example, we opened new markets all of the time. We built new practice areas all of the time. We had, I did a lot of the global international business development. So I was constantly moving, and I needed a constant amount of energy to keep me personally motivated. If I wasn't motivated, I don't think anyone was going to be motivated, right? And the money doesn't motivate you. As we all know, it comes to a certain point in your career which for junior lawyers, that might be a bit of a struggle, because that's how you're being ranked and evaluated, and how you're evaluating yourself and your worth, right? Then there comes a moment really when your career, when it's, in status, it's about being a thought leader, it's about legacy, it's about all of those things, which I think are super important. And I'd realized I'd achieved what I could where I was. Having done 20 years from war, bombing, sanctions to building cross-cultural, and that was also fascinating, being an Irish woman coming into this region at that time, where basically, this was post-war. We had to work on teams that were of different cultural identities who had very recently been at war. The fact that I'm Irish was actually quite useful in that we, whilst, lived close to the border, and it was, international terrorism in Northern Ireland, we were all very much affected by the fact that, identity, religious identity, national identities were super sensitive, right? So coming in as a woman and managing teams of mixed cultures and identities was, for me, also a fascinating case study. I loved it, to be honest, and they loved it. All of the young lawyers that we hired, they came to us precisely because they were getting an experience that they wouldn't have been able to get very easily anywhere else.
That is a great story, and it's there's so much we can unpick on that. But I know we have to move to the next part of your career journey, which was, you've seen law firms from every angle at this point. You're a founder, you're an advisor. You're even advised with the International Bar Association as well. So what's the biggest blind spot you see in firms today, especially how they interact with their in-house cousins, shall I call them?
It's interesting. In fact, we did a session on the app last night on change management. And I think, change is here all of the time. Managing it is an entirely other process. And I think that's probably the key blind spot that I think that, law firm leadership has. And they're aware of change. They just don't know how to manage it. They're still doing very well. And then we have the model by which, partners are remunerated, etc. All of that sort of brands the status quo. And I think that the blind spot is the fact that change is coming faster than we've probably ever seen at every level of the profession. Obviously, the big firms all get the headlines, they get all of the PR, they get all of the promotion, they get all of the the social media space. But actually, the vast majority of law firms in the world are small and medium-sized law firms, and they're equally terrified by change, and certainly not as skilled to be able to navigate it. So I think the blind spot is recognizing that change needs to be managed in order to be effective.
anybody who's done any transformation projects or anybody who's been in any legal transformation team projects, like I was in one company, I think I went through 3 different legal transformations. And when I left, they've had 2 others since. And it's all because you're aligning with the business strategy. So the service line changes or the goals of the company change. So legal has to change with it. So that's for an in-house perspective. What I find fascinating is that I always, and maybe I'm wrong here, but I'm just asking an open question. When we talk about law firm management or equity partnerships, if that's the structure that they use in that law firm, I always feel that those who are junior equity, as in they just started, full of ideas, full of looking to change this, that, and the other, and those at the senior, which are closing in on, inverted commas, retirement, and they're not retiring, they're doing so many other things afterwards. But it is the perceptions, because you need to have them out in order to have some people to come through in order to benefit from the equity, etc. So I see that, but I always say that if there's too many at the top, the closing in on retirement session, things begin to change is more like forced upon them rather than change is embraced. So I say, even in a law department perspective, you either change yourself or you're going to be changed by others. And I've seen teams being cut because it's an easy payroll cut the headcount. And that can be very damaging because a lot of that brain drain goes with it. A lot of that great service that you were providing suddenly is gone because the CFO decided cut your team in half. And there might be only 2 lawyers, so you cut the team in half. But is there any truth in what I'm saying, or am I just being far too cynical about? Now, I've been in private practice as well, so I have an insight, but I'm not going to talk to that. But is there any truth in this?
I think so, because again, as long as legal is seen as a cost, I mean, that's the most natural thing that you're going to look at. You're going to look at the cost factor. So going back to sort of impact, I think we have the opportunity to provide way more impact to the business if we step up to the plate and we take ourselves out of the little boxes that we happen to be put in. So I think that's when we talk about change management, the evolving role of the lawyer, whether you're in-house or external, is it's evolving. And I think being sharp, being savvy, understanding fully the context within which you're giving your advice is going to be the successful lawyer of the future. And they're a different set of skills than the one that can technically do the work, right?
I love that. Right. So let's talk about Platform 9. So you've got a B2B social audio platform for lawyers. So there are listeners who are in tech companies developing very cool technologies, and others are developing their own AI tools, inverted commas, AI tools. Sometimes I think it's just automation with an AI badge. But there are some really, really innovative AI tools coming out. And most of these legal teams and these tech companies are creating things to help manage our workflows. That's the current tech approach. Lots of legal tech around. So for lawyers developing their own for internal use or as a new revenue stream, which they are certain are commoditizing their own tech internally, and in-house teams are doing that as well as law firms. So where I'm looking at this one, it's a very long way to get to a question, I know. But what I'm trying to work out is you leapt from, didn't quite leap, but you've obviously made a decision to go, and we've heard why, but you've made a decision to go into a world which, if I can be blunt, is a world of tech which you didn't really work in because you managed a law firm, and as managing a law firm, you spend more time, I always feel, at dinners than doing work. I'm just being very cruel to all managing partners out there. But the job is to be the chair, the ambassador, the rep, to bring in the business, and you get less time to do the work, although you know it all. But there's a reason why there are tech lawyers as to corporate lawyers, as to IP lawyers, as to private equity lawyers. Everybody has a different skill set. But you didn't just change. You moved into a completely new world. What happened?
I mean, huge thinking.
What's the
there.
crisis that you had? Do you want to tell us all?
Well, clearly, this is, totally truthfully, my relationship fell apart. So I exited sort of the marriage, the firm, the Balkans. And, and I guess probably midlife crisis came upon me. So I did like any sort of normal midlife crisis person did. I bought a place in Ibiza and I sat and I thought.
Nice.
Yeah. So, I was privileged, and COVID was the time where I guess we all had an opportunity to take a step back and look at what mattered to us. So for me, it was about, okay, I have a huge amount of energy. I'm blessed with energy, and I wanted to do something that would be meaningful for the younger lawyers in the profession in particular, because all of my personal experience and my IBA experience and all of that, I felt that there's a huge gap for the younger lawyers being part of the story ideally earlier in their career, particularly now. So I built an app that was designed to bring lawyers together in curated content for a curated community. Because right now, all you have really is LinkedIn. There's like 30 million lawyers on LinkedIn. Lots of scrolling and scrolling and scrolling and scrolling, right? How do you get to content that's inspiring and relevant for your practice in the easiest possible way? At the same time, super important for me is continuing to build human skills and human connection in an AI-driven legal world. So let's assume AI will be a common denominator. We'll all be using tools that enhance productivity. Fantastic. What is missing is the human connection that we have with our clients and that the trust that we can build. So if we don't, in my view, if we don't continue to have younger lawyers in particular be part of the conversation with us, continuing to speak openly and loudly, and these are skills that they're losing in droves. I hear from law firm talent leaders, basically they're not speaking as much as they used to. It's all text messages and WhatsApps and markups and whatever. We have to continue to be able to communicate. And this is an easy way in which on an app, on your phone, you can listen in. It's like Clubhouse. You can listen in to a live and participate in a live conversation about your practice. So yes, no experience in tech. In fact, my kids laugh when they say, Mom's got a legal tech up. It's like hilarious. She's the least legal tech person in the room, right? That's fair enough. But the technology has always been the tool for everything. Technology is a tool. We're still human-driven businesses still. And that was the thinking behind it. So found a team, built an app, beta tested it with 10 law firms across Europe, opened it up to the market back in February. We've got about 1,000 on the app right now. We do live sessions every day, but we've got a nice upgrade coming soon. So I'm excited to launch that in the next month.
Oh, there you go. That's the plug for all the listeners. But if anybody's listening as well, just to be understanding, you might just now get why I really wanted Patricia on our podcast here. The energy comes through, absolutely, because this platform, I really enjoyed helping out at the very, if helping out, if you can call it. I just joined a call, talked, and people listened, so blessed. But it had many overtones of what I'm trying to achieve with these podcast series, giving in-house lawyers, because as in-house lawyers, you don't really get space to talk, you get space to listen. So you go to the law firm conferences, or you go to the big tech conference, or the legal conferences, or the webinar, the seminar, etc. And you don't spend too much time talking. Senior in-house lawyers do. They get invited to lots of events to speak through certain elements that they're talking about. But amongst the profession, within what is a growing, I thought somebody said 33% of the UK profession is now in-house. I think that's still correct.
Yeah, 30% in Ireland nearly, and 50% in the United States.
Well, there you go. Thank
Huge.
you. So it's a profession with a voice which just needs a little bit more time, because within house, time poor. Just absolutely time poor. And for any private practice lawyers out there, we work just as hard as you do. Okay, we're not your second class cousins anymore. We are stellar. Now, let's get back to platform though. Platform 9, as I understand it's live forms, moderated content, real-time dialogue. And I've enjoyed it because it gives in-house lawyers space to learn quickly and to dip in and out rather than, and you don't have to offend anybody dipping in and out. There's tons of content and everything's recorded, so you can dip in and out later on. I also think it's really good for those who are re-entering the job market after many, many years. As we've seen in the tech space, there's been a lot of redundancies. Even before OpenAI was being muted as the time saver for everybody. Outsourcing is still happening. Legal services are being refined, but there's a lot of seasoned, exceptional lawyers out there in the market today. And dipping into, not all of the things, because some of them could be, how did you start a tech practice? How did you start with a tech tool? How did you find a new role? Basic things to detailed conversations about life as a head of legal and the compliance issues and how to pick those issues which are important to the company, not just important to you. It's very important to obviously align yourself with what the company is expecting from legal team rather than what you want them. There's a way of, what do they call it, executive presence or executive influencing, whatever soft skills training we need to do. It's all there. I also like your focus on young lawyers because they finally have a space where they can grow, connect, and not feel like they're stuck in a 1990s fax machine culture. And anybody knows me, I am on a mantra to remove faxes from our notice provisions in our clauses, contracts. I always
incredible,
kind of wonder,
isn't it?
I wonder why it's still there. I know somebody's going to write in always to say, well, in certain financial regulations, you need to have a fax machine. Get it. That's great. But my next question is, do you know where it is? No, you don't. That's fine. You probably don't even have the paper to feed it through. I'm showing my age. But what are the trends coming out? Like, what are the topics that you find have the greatest attendance? Like, where are they coming to you for?
Yeah, AI and legal tech is absolutely front and center for everybody. As we see different parts of the world looking at, it's the same issue irrespective of where you are and what size of firm. They're looking at, we've done a lot of live case studies. We've looked at integration, larger firms or medium-sized firms who've integrated with technology. They've talked us through the process. It's not even just about the particular tool or what it can do for the firm, but it's actually how you came about making that decision. So I think we've done very practical stuff on that. Legal tech is very important. Career progression for the younger lawyers. We did a career week for law graduates on how to get ready they get the CV ready, interview preps. We did the elevator pitches live with people, just put them on the spot and said, you've got 3 minutes to tell me why I should hire you. And it's really quite interesting because, you shake people up. And I think that's the whole point, is that, as a lawyer, we're constantly being faced with the unknowns and how do we respond and react to it. So we do very practical stuff like that. Career progression, law firm management, coaching, mentoring coaching. And we've got a lot of senior lawyers who also want to give back and they're transitioning, as you say, transitioning career. And that's really interesting. We're just starting to build out the in-house focus. And because of my background with, the private sector law firms, I'm probably better connected and better positioned in terms of them, but it's very, very clear that we need to improve the communication between both sides there. Absolutely.
Yeah. No. We're part of the same family. We're not adversaries. I really like Platform 9. And I think that the roadmap that you set out for the development sounds very, very exciting. I think I was trying to explain to somebody, I said it's a bit more like Avengers of legal tech. But instead of saving the world, you're saving lawyers from endless PowerPoint presentations. So thank you for that. I don't want to see another PowerPoint presentation anytime soon.
And it's also, literally, Rory, it's also about keeping it real. Like at the end of the day, vendors are there to vend, right? And, buyers are there to try and understand what they're vending, right? And quite a lot of the buyers don't have enough understanding and experience to be able to differentiate. And I just think by keeping it real, by being able to have, and I think it's more authentic, it's in everybody's interest ultimately. It's not in the vendor's interest, that legal tech companies' interest to be the wrong product in the wrong law firm with low adoption rates, So it's actually, so that does as much negative sort of PR as any of the positive PR. So I think by keeping the conversation authentic and real, if we can, and again, it's a safe space within which we can do so, I think that will be very valuable to people.
I think it is. And there's a theme coming through, which I think everybody listening will hear, is that our growth comes from moving out of our comfort zone and putting people on the spot for doing their elevator pitch and people supporting them. Nobody's going to tear you down in doing those things. They'll help you, guide you. And then you work on it. And then it becomes 3 months, becomes, the elevator pitch. So you got a 30-second pitch, and you use it for different reasons, different people at different times. And then you feel more confident. I really, really like all of that. Now, let me go to change this up a little bit. I call it the lightning round for you. So it's just quick fire and just keep it short.
Okay.
Talk to an Irishman to another Irishman. It's not easy. So 3 simple questions. So what's one legal trend that excites you?
I think technology. I really do. I think technology that can take away some of the cumbersome, pointless, useless crap that we all went through. I'm absolutely, honestly, I just think back of some of the stuff that we had to do. And I'm thrilled that there will be technology that will allow lawyers to use their brains in a different way.
Yeah. Did you ever have the joy of creating a Bible of documents?
Oh, God,
sitting beside a photocopier for a long time.
And slotting in pages as they change.
Yes.
Honestly, we've all done that. Yeah.
Yeah. No, I do have one boss who was quite annoyed that I didn't hole puncture the correct way because there was one page that was slightly out of alignment. Yeah. Joyous times. No, second question. Worst advice you've ever received?
Worst advice. Yeah, if it's bad advice, I tend to not take it. But I think people would like to sort of say, I could retire, I could do nothing. I could do yoga on the beach for the rest of my life if I really felt like it. It's privileged. I'll say that. But I'm glad I didn't take that advice because it wasn't appropriate for me. I think people sort of sometimes project themselves when they're giving advice. And I think you need to be true to yourself. So I ignored it.
Love it. What would be the best Balkan dish for a stressed out lawyer?
I have a bit of a challenge in the Balkans, and anybody who's from the Balkans listening to this, you'll all know I'm a vegetarian, which is kind of not understood at all in a very carnivorous part of the world. So they all thought I was on some sort of fasting diet, some sort of Lenten thing that went on all the time, So they never really understood vegetarianism. It's much better now. But there's a lovely bean dish called pribranac, which would be a comfort food on cold days. Come in, it's wonderful. Tomatoes and beans and peppers are fabulous. And they have a wonderful thing called kaimak, which is like a cream cheese. It's just delicious. So there's some fabulous natural food still to be had in the Balkans.
It's lovely. It's a beautiful location as well. That's brilliant. So let's talk about dynamic between in-house lawyers and law firms. So, because I can talk a lot from both sides, but you've headed up the largest law firm in the Balkans. So you're better placed to answer these questions. What are some ways in-house teams can get better results from the outside counsel?
I mean, it sounds like such a no-brainer, but it's spend genuine time with them. And I think because of the cultural sort of trends within that region, it's quite often it's informal. Most of the real decision-making is done in a kafana, in a cafe, over coffee, over dinner, So it is absolutely standard. If you want to have a difficult conversation with a client or anybody, you will either take them to lunch or take them for coffee or a drink after work or whatever. So that sort of socialization with time, making time for key clients and ensuring that you're communicating effectively, albeit in a casual setting. I don't think that in a very sort of process, high-paced environment, I think there's very, very little time or headspace available to be able to genuinely connect with the clients and ask them. I read a report the other day that only 16% of in-house counsels are asked to give feedback on the law firms that they work with. Like, that is appalling. That is really, really low. Law firms need to be asking their clients for feedback. They need to have the courage and the bravery to accept that feedback. Quite often they don't. But the clients want to give the feedback. So I think for the in-house counsels, I would be saying, stand up and suggest if you've got a panel of firms that you're working with, or you've had a slight issue, or you're a little perturbed by the fee levels or whatever. If there's any issue at all, I would be writing openly and saying, we'd love to do a feedback on the firm. Who should we talk to? Make people give genuine feedback. That is the only way in which I think the service can get better.
Yeah, it's still pushing yourself out of your comfort zone. You might hear something you don't like, or you might hear something you do like, and you're a bit surprised.
But at least you hear it, because otherwise you're living in a bit of an illusion. It's a bit of an optical illusion that everybody's happy with everybody. And actually, suddenly you wake up and the client's gone somewhere else simply because they haven't been able to say or be listened to.
Yeah. I think there was one example I got from years ago was one firm made a point, and it wasn't the lawyers. It was the staff that kind of provide the coffees and the teas and takes your coats and all those things. They made a point of jotting down certain preferences they had for the type of coffee or the tea they liked, or the type of biscuit that they liked, or if they said something particular in passing, just as you talk casually, they noted it down. And so the next time you popped in, they said, "Oh, hello, Patricia. Thank you very much. Come on inside. Listen, we have lunch ready for you. And we've got 10 dishes, all vegetarian style, and a few from the Balkans." You go,
"Oh my God."
And yes, and that's the reaction that clients got, because they got the personalized kind of luxury, but it wasn't luxury brand approach to trying to sell anything. It was more of, we do take notice. It's not just about the money, it's about the service, and we will deliver the service. Now, that was a non-lawyer she took that on herself, and then she trained the other teams to do so. I kind of said, you're kind of like spies or something. So, what does that demonstrate? It demonstrates that you're being thoughtful. If you're being thoughtful about the type of coffee that I like, you're equally going to be thoughtful about the advice that I need for my business today. Exactly.
It translates. It's a trait. It's a human skill and trait that we can focus on and we can develop. There's no reason whatsoever why we can't do that.
But how do we address I was about to say the elephant in the room, but it's not really an elephant. I'm just thinking of it. The big bugbear for in-house teams is trying to navigate the pricing conversation. So when you say, well, we want to sit down, we want to have a conversation with the law firm. And the worry is, they've just clicked on the clock. They're going to, even if I had 10 seconds, they're going to charge me 6 minutes. I'm going to have to justify this later on. We're going to have an argument over the fee narrative. I don't have time to look through the fee narrative. How can you shift that away from more, from kind of like that difficult friction conversation into a value conversation?
I think there's always going to be a friction as both, parties are looking for, one is clearly, and I've always felt this, that there is a disconnect between the billable hourly rate and the concept of value for clients. In-house quite often say that they're comfortable with the hourly rate because they understand in advance what a budget might be and you know where you stand, versus a value proposition where honestly, we have not yet, I think as a profession, understood how to charge for value-based work. We haven't done it, and because we haven't done it, there's a lot of talking out there, and then one side will say, well, the billable hour is always going to be there, whatever, and then there's the other side that's saying, well, actually, now that we're tech enabled, there's really need to be new models. So I would imagine the truth is someplace in between. I think if a client is satisfied with the service, I think it's unlikely that they'll complain about the bill. It's only if they're sort of, quibbling maybe, or if it's unrealistic in terms of its expectation. But I think it's a conversation that both parties need to have. Certainly, you shouldn't be charging. I mean, any lawyer that's charging a client when they come in and look for feedback, or they're just I think that's outrageous. I think we need to be investing in our clients. Not all clients are the same. Not all clients are as strategic. So the strategic clients need to get free time spent with those clients, talking about their business plans for the future, their strategies for the future. You then similarly need to spend a bit of time, I would say, as an external lawyer, on either regulatory, what's coming up, what are you seeing in other players in the industry, what is coming up that's going to affect your bottom line, and be ready for it. I think the point is anticipating change, providing for it, demonstrating that you are not just sending a newsletter to your client and everybody else, right, with the same information on it. Make it bespoke, make it personable to the in-house lawyer that you're working with. So I don't know, that's just an extra bit of care and attention, but that is service. As you say, it's service and communication, good communication, which takes time.
It does. I do remember one client that I was working with, and we're very friendly, great friends. I've looked after kids on occasions, lovely children. I can't say the same for my own, but it worked. But what we did get to, just joking, just in case they're listening to this podcast, love you dearly. It's
impressive if they're listening to this podcast.
Stop it.
Bedtime reading has gone out. The new bedtime reading is listening to the podcast. You have them asleep in no time.
Absolutely. You see, it's a win-win. No, I was thinking, just because when we started, it was actually communication. So I had, up to that point, been trained, of course, you have to touch upon everything within a contract. These are the points, these are the options, what do you think? Then I sent it back. Very thorough, very good piece of work. I thought it was amazing. The response I got back was, this is not what I want. I went, huh?
I know.
I said, but you asked me to review the contract. That's the extent of the instruction.
Okay.
And then it emerged that, well, the actual ask was, there are 3 areas I care in this contract, because we're more of a scale up rather than a big company that has big bargaining positions. So these are the ones we care about. This is our standard template. Can you just see if our standard template is okay against this contract? That's a very different ask. And it's also a very different amount of time that you need to spend. So
okay, but was the mistake there the fact that you had understood when review the contract, you had understood it from one perspective,
exactly.
And they had understood it from an entirely other, and nobody had bridged the information gap.
No, so it was if you just had a quick conversation to say, so this is what I'm thinking, and they said, is that correct? Like salespeople in there, when the vendors are trying to they do this. So you're saying no because of this. Have you thought about? And they keep the conversation going. You feel like you never get them off the call. But that's the trick that they're using. Just word of advice to anybody, if you see that it's just kind of just keep your down to no, yes, no. Anything else? No. Any reasons? No. It's like just keep it, and then you can politely leave the call. But you need to have the time, and also they need to know that when you're asking these questions, you're not billing them for the questions. You're just trying to understand the instruction to make sure they get what they want. And then if you get it wrong, we'll have a conversation about it, so that the next time it comes in, I know exactly what it is. But you're building that rapport with them, and then they trust you. That's the key question for this. Anyway. I was thinking about this, and I just thought that in-house lawyers and law firms, they're kind of like roommates who share a fridge. And if you get it wrong, you don't set the boundaries, somebody's going to eat your yogurt. So, you need to be careful. Okay. Okay. So if I could then, as I do with all of my guests, I have these final questions. And before we wrap up, I just want to ask you these two. What's one thing that people often get wrong about your work?
Maybe the motivation, although I try to be quite direct about it. I'm still pretty driven, but it's somebody called me, you want to be a female Steve Jobs here? And I went, actually, no. I mean, I want, so I think probably it's about building an opportunity for genuine connectivity with people and disrupting how lawyers can communicate by making it easier somehow. And even the fact that it's audio only and it's not visual, many people are either want to be on the move or they don't want to be seen, actually, and I think that, being part of something by listening, by having your voice, the voice is key here, actually. I mean, this is how humans first started to communicate. Our voice, the tone, the pausing, the waiting, the politeness, the agreement, the support. That was my motivation. Sometimes people kind of get it wrong. They just think I want to be a big legal tech bro.
Well, if you did, I'd applaud you either way. I think it looks good. And I'll go to your TED Talk, no problems. But what's one thing that you find fun to do?
I love traveling. I'm on the road. I'm entirely nomadic. That's something that somebody said to me recently. He said, you should be doing your podcast on that. I'm like, oh, well, because, I've done sort of family, I've done all, my kids have grown up. I'm, your classic example of a very independent woman of a certain age. And the joy of that is the freedom. I feel blessed every day that I'm free enough to be able to decide. Right now, I'm in Stockholm for 6 weeks. I'll be back in London, then I'll be in Dublin, then I'll be in Dubai, and then I'll be in different parts in the US for a month. I'm moving as this project is growing, and I'm privileged, and I love it. Like I think my daughter said recently, she looked at my star sign and she just said, "Oh my God, Mom, travel is in 7 of your houses or whatever." I'm like, "What does that mean?" I have no idea. And she said, "Well, that kind of explains why you're always on the move." I like moving. I like meeting, other cultures, other food, exploring, hiking, the whole thing. That for me is fun. I get excited, still get excited when I get on a plane.
Yeah, no, I can see that your energy does come through. And I did bump into you at one of our conferences in London. I was doing a speech thing, and then you were there in the back, and I could spot you straight away. And then I was going, okay, where is she now? I said, it's kind of like a pinball machine, where she's gone from place to 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 place. I don't think there was anybody left within that building of, I felt that there were thousands there, but I'm sure it's hundreds, whatever. But there were so many people there. I don't think there's anybody who didn't meet you or didn't hear from you.
Yeah, it was quite remarkable because it was, I recall the event a couple of weeks ago. I must have had 70 or 80 of our moderators that were there. So I was going around, and I just hired a new guy who's based in LA at the moment. Taylor's with us. And he's like, "Who do you not know in this community?" And I'm like, these are all the people who've been on our app. They're wonderful people. They're people about change, legal tech. And I thought it was wonderful. I get a lot of energy from their energy, actually.
Yeah. No, I could see it. It's very, very good. So for everybody here, there you have it. Patricia Gannon, proving that lawyers can have fun. I always feel it's fun as long as it's scheduled between 2 and 2:15 on a Friday. So Patricia, thank you very much for showing us that legal careers don't have to be linear, boring, or stuck in a boardroom. So you've been founding firms to founding platforms, and you've redefined what leadership looks like in the law. Thank you, Patricia.
Thank you. I've just totally loved this. You're really good at this, Rory. Keep it up. I love it.
I love it too. And to our amazing listeners, thank you for listening. Until next time, stay curious, switch into overdrive, and step boldly beyond the fine print. Thank you.
Love it. Bye.
Thanks for listening to Beyond the Fine Print. If you've enjoyed the show, be sure to subscribe on your favorite podcast platform so you don't miss the next episode. And if you have any burning questions you want us to cover in a future episode, send them to beyondthefineprint@rmoklegal.com. See you next time.